From the Reporter, the paper of record for Delaware County's towns and villages, this is Off the Record, a quick look at the latest county news. This week, we've got a potential new solar farm in Delhi, a big leak in Walton's sewer system, and a new drug court that seems like it's coming to the county. Let's get to it. We'll start off with Delaware County's Adult Treatment Court. It is back. In a slightly different form, and it's got a different kind of criticism. District Attorney Sean Smith, he had pulled out of the program last year because he said the old version was too lenient on drug offenders, and his whole job is to lock people up. Well, he's rejoined the program because there are new rules. Participants, they have to plead guilty to their top charge and then agree in advance to serve the maximum sentence if they fail out of the program. And there is a zero tolerance policy. One new crime, jaywalking, they are out. And by out, we mean in, because they'd be in jail. Anyway, not everyone's on board with this new program. Public Defender Joe Ermetti, he says he was excluded from meetings, closed-door meetings, that reshaped the program, and he called that decision, quote, morally questionable and cowardly. As a founding member of this drug court, he is refusing to participate, calling it prosecution biased. But despite the tension, the new court is underway. There's one participant enrolled, 2 more are being reviewed, and Judge Gary Rosa says the goal is the same: real treatment, real recovery, and less jail time. Karen Wallace found herself caught between a rock and another rock. Her husband and the district attorney's office. She says both of them pressured her, just in different ways. Her husband, Sidney Wallace of Roxbury, had just been indicted on serious child sex abuse charges, and Karen says he emotionally manipulated her into posting his bail, sending her messages with veiled threats about her past to push her into posting his bail. At the same time, she says, prosecutors warned that if she did bail him out, she could lose custody of her children because she'd be aiding a suspected sex offender. So Karen is stuck in an impossible situation. She did her best, though. She posted the bond, but then she turned around and asked the court for an order of protection against her husband, hoping that would be enough to have the district attorney's office let her keep her kids. It mostly was. She now has her children with her, but only under supervision, and she's waiting to hear if the court is going to grant that protective order against her husband. And her husband, Sidney Wallace, he remains free on bail. Delhi Town Hall was standing room only last week. The issue? Locals were there to weigh in on a proposed solar farm on the old McFarland property. And does that sound rural or what? The old McFarland property. Anyway, the plan is for 20 acres of solar panels feeding power to the local grid. There are no batteries, there's no concrete, and there are no environmental red flags. Supporters point out that it is a smart step towards clean energy. Critics, they're not convinced. Their issues: sun glare, drops in property value, and then health concerns about electromagnetic radiation. And, there is the wisdom of, should they be building it next to a historic site? So yeah, the opinions are flying. There's no decision yet from the planning board, but they will be back at it come April. The Village of Sydney, they are doing something right. Next year's budget has less than a 1% property tax increase, plus no cuts to any services and no change in the water or sewer bills. How'd they pull it off? The trustees say it was just thanks to some smart belt-tightening, and they did some shifting of staff around instead of hiring new folks. Plus, they gave a big shout-out to the department heads there for trimming the budgets without gutting the essentials. The public hearing to finalize the village budget is April 14th. But with numbers like these, we're kind of hoping it's going to be a quiet one. But this is worth mentioning. The village is cracking down on people who owe back taxes. If you haven't paid yours in more than 7 years, they're coming for you. There are actually 11 properties like that. Together, their owners owe the village more than $180,000. And some of those bills come with some crazy interest, too. Like, they owe more in penalties than they do in taxes. All right, so Sydney balanced its budget, yay math, but at this week's village board meeting, the real buzz was about summer fun. First up, the village pool is set to open on time in June, but there's a $51,000 repair job on its drains and pumps. The insurance company said it wasn't going to pay for it, so Mayor Ray Baker, he's hoping local companies like Amphenol and Chobani might help foot the bill. No matter what, he says, they will open the pool on time this year. Also making waves in the village, a dog park proposal from one resident, Bill Hunt. He wants to build one in honor of his late uncle, who was a beloved local math teacher. Hunt is footing the costs, and the village is going to figure out where to put it, and there's a little polite debate over whether to do it downtown or in some parkland that's not quite downtown. Volleyball players, meanwhile, heads up. Next year's team fee is going up to $75. It's not quite the $100 that was originally planned, but it's enough to cover the lights, upkeep of the field, and maybe even a friendly police officer or two keeping an eye on things. What started as a routine sewer inspection in Walton turned into something more like a plumbing horror story. All right, maybe not that bad. Crews, they popped open a manhole near the Lactalis plant, and instead of a little trickle of water, boom, they found a gushing leak dumping more than 100 gallons a minute into the village sewer system. Basically, a fire hose of clean groundwater flooding in through what turned out to be cracked clay pipes. The leak is bad enough that it's actually pushing Walton right up against its daily wastewater limit, which, if breached, could mean big fines because of New York City watershed regulations. The village, it approved an emergency $112,000 repair using a cured in-place lining. Basically, they're putting a new pipe inside the old one. It'll only take a few days to fix, so it's probably done by the time you hear this, but it's only a temporary patch in a much bigger problem, a $3 million problem that Walton, it really just can't afford to fix. So it's not glamorous, but at $3 million, it's going to save the village from basically drowning in its own wastewater. Here's sort of a quiz for you. A couple of SUNY Delhi students get pulled over by the police for, are you ready, a license plate light that was too dim. Despite this not being a moving violation, the police decided to give the driver not one, but 3 field sobriety tests. He passed them all. They searched the car, they searched the driver, and then they let him go with 3 tickets for minor things wrong with his vehicle. And the quiz part? And this is not a trick question. What color was the driver's skin? Things are stirring in Delancey. Maybe. The Hampden Planning Board got a sneak peek at a possible new retail space at Birdsong Farm, but without a signed lease or any details, it was more of a teaser than the full trailer. The building, which is on Back River Road, is being renovated to include both a shop and a 4-bedroom apartment. Separate entrances, no crossover, but when the planners asked what kind of store was moving in, the answer was, So until the owner's team comes back with more info, like the type of business and how many parking spots it'll need, the board is hitting pause. Remodeling, they love it. Opening shop, they want to see your cards first. And finally, we've got some great news for pool lovers. Delaware County just scored itself a $25,000 grant from the state's, you ready for this? Statewide Investment in More Swimming. That's SWIMS program. And it's all about keeping lifeguard chairs filled and the pool gates open longer. So of this $25,000, $5,000 will go towards certifying adult lifeguards. And that could be a big deal because most pools rely on high school and some college kids. And that's great in July, but in May, September, those kids, they got to be back in school. Adult lifeguards mean we might actually get a full summer of swimming instead of one of these super quick, gotta close the pool early kind of seasons. The rest of the grant, that's $20,000, that's going to be split among 10 pools across the county, and it'll be used to keep the water clean, keep the lights on, and of course, keep those summer vibes strong. And that's it for this week's Off the Record. For the full stories and plenty more, grab this week's copy of The Reporter. You can get it in print or online at the-reporter.net. Once again, I'm Andrew Cantor. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.